I was 16 years old. To the right of me was my caseworker. To the left of me was her supervisor. Sitting directly in front of me was a child welfare judge who would be deciding whether I, at 16, should be allowed to get his own apartment and live on his own. The problem was, Illinois policy stated that a foster child had to be 18 years of age before they could qualify for the independent living program. And so I had to present an impassioned argument with statements like, I have a 3.3 GPA, I'm a student athlete, I deserve to live on my own. After listening to this impassioned argument, the judge left the room to deliberate. Now, you may be asking yourself, how does a 16-year-old find himself sitting in a courtroom arguing for why he should be allowed to live on his own at such a young age? Well, I was born on the south side of Chicago, in the crucible of what could be called the worst public housing crisis in modern America history. On the south side of Chicago, over $1 billion in crack cocaine was transacted per year. There were 23 homicides per week. Elementary schools where 100% of the students attending were on free or reduced lunch. And there was a notorious 30% high school dropout rate. The first place I called home were the Robert Taylor Project homes, or as we simply put them, the Robert Taylors. My father was murdered in 1994. He was a former drug dealer who went on to join the Army, do his service, come back to his community. He attempted to break up a fight on the south side of Chicago, and it did not end well for him. My mother became addicted to cocaine shortly thereafter. And so, at the tender age of 5, I entered foster care and remained until I was 18. These things undoubtedly had an impact on the way I viewed the world as a youth. Most importantly, how I viewed education. I was definitely not motivated. I did not see or understand how the education I was receiving at that time had any impact on the things that were going on in my life at that moment. But in the midst of all of this, there was a teacher, my freshman year, in biology class, who did understand the impact that education had, not only on my future, but on my present life. That teacher's name was Miss Nataki. She inspired me because she understood my potential. She asked herself the question how this young man could walk into her classroom after never studying and always get a B+ on every exam she threw in front of him. She was the first person to ever tell me, you know, you could be great. And her words inspired something within my soul, within my spirit. I believed those words. And it was the catalyst to me shifting my view of the importance of education in my life. I understood that I had the potential to do better and that I would do better. I was no longer afraid to be great, no longer afraid to demand from the world, what I wanted from it. And so that's how I mustered up the courage to, at 16, present that impassioned argument to that judge who had already denied me once when I was 15 years old. And so the judge walked back into the room. After what seemed like hours of deliberation, and after a few moments of pause, she granted my request. 2 weeks later, I was living in my own apartment, playing the role of both parent and student. Shortly thereafter, a bunch of more people, like Miss Nataki, came into my life, pouring into my cup. People who were willing to sacrifice for me. People who were willing to give up something in their own lives, whether it be money, time, or just caring words. Those people set me up on a trajectory to secure over $1 million in scholarships before I graduated from high school. Yes, I said over $1 million in scholarships. Enough money to ensure that I would not have to worry about how I, as an impoverished foster child, would pay for college. Today, I'm an entrepreneur and author, cum laude Morehouse College alumnus, upcoming University of Pennsylvania graduate, and, as you can see, an amazing speaker. Shameless plug, shameless plug. I often sit back and reflect in my moments of solitude and ask myself a question. I ask, is there something from my story that can be extracted? A simple lesson that can be taken and scaled to help more youth? Because one thing that I do realize is that my story is quite unique. The circumstances that led up to my placement in foster care are extreme. So they aren't necessarily representative of the experience many foster youth have in America. But one thing I do know, on the flip side, is that my story is not unique, in that there are over 500,000 foster youth in the United States as I speak, a population that is disproportionately Black and Latino and disproportionately poor. And so, after I've asked this question, the same question over the years, I keep coming back to the same answer. And it is a resounding yes. There are lessons. The first lesson being, I believe we must debunk this myth that when it comes to foster youth, or any vulnerable youth for that matter, that there is this one person who can just swoop into their life and be the end-all, be-all savior for that youth. For foster youth, my experience and research validate the fact that it just doesn't happen this way. For foster youth, life is not Karate Kid, it is not Dead Poet Society, or any of those feel-good movies that make you believe that one person can fill all the gaps. For a foster youth, life looks much more something like this. You have the youth in the middle, and they're standing there with a lot of questions and a lot of needs, basic needs such as food, clothing, shelter, nurturing. But then they have more nuanced needs like, and things that most people wouldn't even understand at face value, things like needing an adult to open a bank account for them, college advisement, nurturing of simple life skills such as how to balance a checkbook, and of course, college preparation guidance. For me, the web looks something like this. Nicole was the person on the right of me in the courtroom, my caseworker. Beverly was the person to my left. Miss Nataki was the first person who gave me that academic guidance I needed as a teen. Desmond Kemp became a father figure to me, providing the life skills and the advisement just about how to become a man. Tyrone gave me my first job as a cleanup boy on the south side of Chicago in a barbershop. Miss Parker provided college advisement, and she also introduced me to Desmond. Cesare, at one point, helped me purchase my equipment for athletics. I was a multi-athlete. And Miss Jackson bought my suit for prom. It was a really nice suit, by the way. I will never forget any of the things that these 8 people did for me. But it just doesn't stop at these 8 people. The list goes on from there. Countless names that I don't have enough time to list individually. But all of these people came together to form a very intricate and complex web in my life. People who helped put me on a different trajectory. And I think that this message is needed today because we know within the United States, foster youth have a 50% chance of graduating from high school. Yes, only 1/2 of foster youth even graduate from high school. That in and of itself is a travesty. But we also know that of these 50% who graduate, only 20% attend college. Now, of that 50% to the 20% who go off to attend, only 5% go on to graduate from college. And so, to put that very simply for you, a foster youth in the United States has a 1 out of 200 chance of graduating from college. I hate to say this, but I must say this. The United States is failing foster youth. We are failing our foster youth. And so this May, on this National Foster Care Month, I believe that my big idea is that we must shift our child welfare policies, and most importantly, we must change our culture, the way we think about nurturing foster youth in this country, in order to put them on a different trajectory in life. The thing we must understand is that when it comes to foster youth, it actually does take a village to raise a child. Thank you all very much.